ROTC program in the country.
You ready to?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I ran for my WIT meeting because, of course, even though we told them a million times I had to leave at 9:50, they went right up until 10.
The committee will come to order. Welcome. Good morning. We will make this as quick and painless as any committee meeting we'll have this year, but probably the only quick and painless meeting. But I got to say, I'm very proud of this committee on both sides of the aisle for the professionalism, for the civility, mutual respect. I mean, we disagree on a number of things and sometimes vehemently, and we have great, robust debate, but we conduct ourselves in a way that I think reflects the very best of the American people. And that means a lot in this town, not just to me. It's not easy to do, but you guys do it you did it throughout the last Congress. And I want to speak to some of the things that I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish, I think as a result of that, quite frankly. But the purpose of the meeting today is it's an organizational meeting to formally ratify our committee membership. We have some new members on both sides. You'll introduce your colleagues, and I'll introduce the Republican colleagues. And then we'll adopt the committee rules and oversight plan for the 119th Congress, which has, to cut to the chase, no substantive changes to it. Mr. Ranking Member, I'm just going to launch into a few opening comments, and then I'm going to ask you to, and then we'll get on with the business of today. So when I say I'm proud of what we've been able to do collectively, there's some things that we all will do because we believe in our hearts and with the deepest of personal convictions that they must be done, whether they're done in a bipartisan way, or if we have to do it sort of alone as one caucus or another. And I think both sides have demonstrated that. But I believe also strongly that when we can work together, when we can find common ground, I think that's a much more sustainable proposition for the country. And thanks to my friend, who happens to be my ranking member, Brennan Boyle, and his commitment, and my Democrat colleagues and Republican colleagues, we've done a lot. They've been nickels and dimes, as I would call them in West Texas, not the big dollar changes, but the nickels and dimes add up on making the budget process, which is completely dysfunctional, but as Tom McClintock, my good friend, would say, the fault is not in our stars, it's in ourselves. So maybe the dysfunction lies within.
I think Shakespeare said it first. With all,
in all modesty, it was Shakespeare. Well, when you hear Tom McClintock enough, you start to get a sense of the Shakespearean spirit. But nevertheless, we were able to pass 17 bills out of this committee, more in one Congress, which is more than any Congress from this committee in the history of its formation in 1974. And 11 of the 17 were done together, collectively. We said, this will make the process more accountable, make us more responsible, and the outcomes better for the country as a result. And Mr. Boyle, you had one that you led where I was in a support role that became law, where we give CBO greater access to data, and they can't be expected to do a good job on accurate projections if they don't have good data. So you helped in that endeavor. And then Glenn Grothman got his first bill passed, not only on the House floor, but signed into law, and that was going to reduce the unnecessary and burdensome reports that have no meaningful effect other than to cause people to waste time and taxpayer money. But we did it together. So my call to you all as we look ahead is, yes, there will be things we will do, like we did our 10-year balanced budget resolution. We will probably end up doing that as a partisan effort. But I hope that we can continue to work on fixing the broken budget process together. I think there's more work to be done there. Secondly, we have to continue sounding the alarm for the American people that this country and their government is on a completely unsustainable path. Now, I may have one way to address it, you may have another, but at the end of the day, we have to do something. And quite frankly, Jimmy Panetta, you know this better than anybody, some of those things will require both sides to work together, or they won't get done, and there will be real pain and serious consequences. And I'm talking about Medicare, Social Security, that are already on a glide path to insolvency. So, I'm excited about the year and two ahead in this Congress in the 119th. I'm excited personally about advancing our new president's America First agenda, but I'm also excited to continue to advance the policies and priorities that we've established in our Reverse the Curse Balanced Budget Blueprint, which essentially is to restore fiscal responsibility and sanity to Washington, to unleash prosperity through economic freedom, and to make sure that taxpayers' dollars, their sacred hard-earned dollars, are stewarded as if they were our money and our children's money in their piggy bank. Because that $2 trillion annual deficit both sides have contributed to, that will double over the next 10 years, that deficit that is now at 7% to GDP, which we haven't seen, as Scott Bessent said, only in war times, only in depression, only in pandemics, but we're seeing it in relative peace and prosperity. We have to get control of this, and we have to put this country on a sustainable path so we can ensure our children inherit the blessings of liberty and prosperity and all the blessings of the American promise that we've enjoyed. Lastly, I want to introduce our new members. Marlon Stutzman from Indiana. He's no stranger to this committee or to Congress. This is second to our duties on financial services. Marlon, welcome. Proud to serve with you and glad you're here. Jay Obernolte. Jay Obernolte on energy and commerce. Jay, raise your hand, wave to everybody. He is also chair of the House Task Force on AI. We think AI can contribute to productivity, economic gains, but also AI can help us identify waste and fraud. But then again, we have to take action when we have identified it. Jay, thank you for your willingness to serve. Mike Carey is here from Ways and Means. I don't know that he's made it, but he's a Ways and Means representative. Andrew Clyde, appropriator, combat veteran from Georgia. Aaron Houchin, my friend from the Hoosier State, who is serving as a Rules Committee appointee. Aaron, welcome. Thanks for your willingness to serve. Addison McDowell, who's no stranger to Capitol Hill and has racked up many years in public service, but now he's on the elected official side. So welcome to the dark side, Addison. Brandon, my freedom-fighting, God-fearing friend from the great state of Texas, who is also the president of his freshman class. So Brandon, thanks for your willingness to serve. And Tim Moore, the speaker, former Speaker of the House of North Carolina. Tim Moore, wave to everybody. Thank you for your willingness to serve. You know, states have to do budgets and they have to balance. So you might have to take a strong shot of something before you come in and out of this committee to recognize that dynamic doesn't exist here at the moment, but you're going to change that. With that, ranking member, take it away.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I begin, I'd also like to introduce the new members of the committee on the Democratic side. First, Bonnie Watson Coleman of New Jersey. She and I came in to the Congress together a decade ago and will be a great member of this committee. Stacey Plaskett, also a classmate of mine. She is new to us this term, although she has served on the Budget Committee in the recent past. Veronica Escobar of the great state of Texas. Marcy Kaptur, who is returning, having served on the Budget Committee not last term or the term before, but having served on the Budget Committee 10 years ago. and obviously is a passionate fighter for working Americans from Toledo, Ohio. Similar to Marcy, Paul Tonko of New York, there we go. Paul Tonko of New York, who is also returning, having served on this committee as recently as the 112th Congress, which was a decade ago, from upstate New York or the Albany area. And then two newer members, both to the committee as well as to Congress, Morgan McGarvey from Louisville, Kentucky. Hopefully I slurred that enough that I say it like I fit in Louisville. He represents the district that our great former chairman, John Yarmouth, used to represent in the Congress. And then finally, Gabe Amo of Rhode Island, one of the real rising stars in the House of Representatives, and just great. I thank all of the new members to this committee, as well as to the returning members as well. And I want to personally thank you, Jody, Mr. Chairman. You know, we sat here exactly 2 years ago and both spoke about striking a tone of civility and seriousness when it comes to this committee. And even when we've had disagreements, I can honestly say that we upheld that, as did every member of this committee. In fact, I said 2 years ago that, you know, there are certain committees in Congress that the performance artists just love to be on. This isn't one of them. We're going to do serious work, and we did that. And the fact that 17 bills passed out of this committee, we had not had one bill pass out of this committee in decades. And then here we are able to pass 17, and 11 of them were supported on the Democratic side of the dais. You know, bipartisanship is a two-way street. And when the majority is willing to work with us, they will see that you have a willingness on this side to achieve bipartisanship. We will, on principle, fight on those areas where we cannot agree, and that's exactly what we should be doing. But there are areas where we can agree and make a positive difference, and I appreciate his support of my bill, the CBO Data Sharing Act. That will make the Congressional Budget Office better at their jobs so that they can serve Congress and get us the accurate data. And that's just one of the 11 pieces of legislation that passed out of this committee and was ultimately, you know, as was mentioned, ultimately got over the finish line. I will say specifically on debt, and we'll have a lot of time to get into this in the weeks and months and the 2 years ahead. The chairman has spoken genuinely, because I know it's coming from a sincerely held view in a genuine place, that our debt is a ticking time bomb. And I know he's sincere about it. I have to say, and I've made this observation before, that a lot of my friends on the other side of the aisle talk passionately about deficit and debt when there's a Democrat in the White House. Then suddenly, when the occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue switches, the focus gets on the tax cuts, and you don't hear as much as about deficit and debt. I certainly hope that pattern that I've seen repeatedly over the last several decades does not follow this time. Because, as I mentioned here before, while I'm not a debt alarmist, I don't think we're suddenly going to see a run on our debt tomorrow. The projections in the medium term are frightening. I'll never forget that when we had former Senator Mitt Romney here at a hearing that we held this past year, he recited the old line that when someone went into debt and went bankrupt, they asked him, how did it happen? And he said, slowly at first, and then all at once. Well, when you look at those projections for the next decade, which, by the way, we're now only 5 years away from hitting, when you look at those projections and then you add $4.6 trillion of new debt on top of it, which is what the extension of the TCJA would cost, we're getting closer and closer to that day where it was all at once. We've had Moody's and others talk about the movement that we're seeing on a daily basis in the 10-year bond market. If we were to see a run on our debt and suddenly yields and interest rates go from 4% to 14 and beyond, that's where it would start to happen. So I hope that this is the term that all of us really take the debt issue seriously before it's too late. And as you know, my friend, you will have a sincere partner in me and those of us on that side of the aisle so that we can leave a better country for our children and our grandchildren. And with that, I'll yield back.
I thank the ranking member, and will tell you with every fiber of my being, and I know my colleagues, my Republican colleagues will share this sentiment, we will do everything in our power to live up in practice to what we've committed to rhetorically, which that consistency on both sides is a rare thing, but that is certainly what this committee strives for and will continue to into this Congress. Thank you, Mr. Boyle. We meet to consider the committee's rules of procedures and the committee's oversight plan. The proposed rules and oversight plan have been shared with all members of the committee. My understanding is that the minority has no objections to the committee rules or oversight plan. The committee's rules set out its procedures, which must be consistent with the House rules, and the committee's oversight plan outlines proposed activities for this Congress. We will now proceed to the consideration of committee rules for adoption. These rules are essentially the same rules as the committee has operated, as I mentioned, under the past, under both Republican and Democrat majorities. There are a few technical changes intended to conform to our committee's rules with the rules of the House of Representatives. At this time, I'd like to recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Smucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask unanimous consent that the markup document is Sorry. Let me turn this on. Thank
There you
you,
go.
Mr. Chairman. I ask unanimous consent that the markup document is considered read and open for amendment at any point.
Before I respond to that, and for the record, happy birthday, Lloyd Smucker.
Can't believe it's 39 years already.
You look amazing, even at 39. Without objection, the request is agreed to. The committee will now proceed to the consideration of the Rules Committee, or of the committee rules, rather. My understanding is that we have no amendments, so I'd like to move to the adoption of the committee's rules. Again, I now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Smucker, for the purposes of offering the necessary motions to adopt the committee rules.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee adopt the chairman's mark as the rules of the Committee on the Budget for the 119th Congress.
The question is on the motion offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The committee rules are adopted. I'd like to make an announcement at this time because it's required by House rules. The committee rules contain a provision of the long-discussed practice of holding regular meetings on the second Wednesday of each month. The committee has noticed pursuant to Committee Rule 3 that all regular meetings for the 119th are canceled. Members will be notified for additional and special meetings, as is our customary practice. Not sure I even understood that, but did I just cancel all future meetings? I mean, are we just like done for the Congress, Gary? There will be no follow-up questions after the committee will now consider the oversight plan for the 119th Congress. Under both House and committee rules, the Budget Committee is required to adopt an oversight plan by March 1st. The plan before the committee is shared with the minority, summarizes the areas in which the Budget Committee has oversight. The plan also states that the committee will exercise its oversight responsibility over the Congressional Budget Office. The committee plans to hold a series of hearings on important budget-related matters, very similar to what the committee has done traditionally, again, with both Democrat and Republican majorities. I'd like to emphasize that this schedule is not binding and therefore does not preclude the committee from holding hearings on other topics as needed and as needs arise and circumstances change. My understanding is that we have no amendments at this time. I'd like to recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Smucker.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that the oversight plan is considered read.
Without objection, the oversight plan is considered read. I recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Smucker, for the purpose of offering the necessary motion to adopt the oversight plan.
Mr. Chairman, I move that committee adopt the chairman's mark as the oversight plan for the Committee on the Budget for the 119th Congress.
Questions on the motion offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The oversight plan is adopted. I ask unanimous consent that the committee be authorized to issue and print copies of the compilations of laws and rules related to the congressional budget process without objection. So ordered. I recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Smucker.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make technical conforming or stylistic changes to the committee rules and oversight plan. The rules of the committee and the budget be issued as a committee print. The chairman be authorized to submit the rules for printing in the congressional record within 30 days. And the chairman be authorized to submit the oversight plan to the committees on House Administration and Oversight and Government Reform.
Without objection, so ordered. This concludes the items of business on the agenda for the committee's organizational meeting. While it may have sounded like I canceled every meeting, henceforward, that will depend on further considerations by the chairman. With that, the committee is adjourned. We look forward to working with everybody and having a great Congress. God bless America.